lots of risk aversion coming to the fore. We're seeing the euro dollar at around 136, so really just showing that there is uncertainty right now. Commodity prices also battling to find some direction. Give us your overall perspective of the current situation.
Well, I think we're coming through a phase where we had the large, deep recession. We came out of that, we all got excited, things are getting better. All of those quarterly GDP numbers started turning positive, and the world was a better place. But now I think there's still some uncertainties. We're just realizing that we're not out of the woods completely yet. A lot of that stimulus is still being applied, the monetary and the fiscal stimulus still being applied to those economies. But as you mentioned, Europe, a lot of those countries and the sovereign debt still quite a big issue. There's some concerns there, a lot of concerns there. Concerns in China as well. They've already started tightening monetary policy. You wouldn't think that they're going to just suddenly tighten dramatically, reduce their stimulus over time. And you've also got Bernanke this week testifying about probably when the US will start removing some of that monetary policy stimulus. So I think there's a lot of concerns about where global growth is going, and that's feeding through into things like commodities. How much is that demand going to continue and to keep pushing prices or keeping prices where they are?
Well, prices coming under pressure, of course, on the commodity front, but we've got a lot of resource companies out with results this week, and I think that will be quite telling as to where demand is going for these commodities. We had Harmony out yesterday, of course, 49 cents a share profit, and that's from a 12 cent loss the previous quarter. So this company faring much better, and of course the outlook also looking much better.
Yes, I think what we've seen is that commodity prices, where about a year ago they were quite low. The world was a terrible place, and we saw the demand start kicking in. We saw commodity prices generally rising over the course of last year, faltering a little as at the start of the new year. But a lot of these results now that we're getting are reflecting those higher commodity prices towards the latter part of last year. Harmony's was their first half results, first financial year half, relating to the last part of last year, and that reflects that higher rand gold price that we've seen. So benefiting from the higher gold price, but the rand in a lot of these commodity companies has been the fly in the ointment.
Of course, we also had Anglo Platinum out with results yesterday. Headline earnings per share down 95%. So really a bleak picture for this company. Of course, 80% owned by Anglo American, and we also heard that this company is now embarking on a rights issue to try and pay off some of the debt.
Yes, I think the CEO there called it a red financial year, and really there's nothing good that you can draw out of last year, except for the fact that they got their 2.5 million refined platinum ounces. So they met their target. But this is a company that's had a target. Well, if you go back, a good couple of years, they were targeting 3 million ounces, and it's been 2.4 million ounces for a number of years now. And the outlook going forward is for another 2.5 million for the next 2 years, before they start increasing that by 3% a year. So we've scaled back those aspirations quite a lot. A lot of closures of unprofitable parts of the business, and also a lot of layoffs of staff, cut 20% of their workforce last year. So really dramatic times at Anglo Plat. And of course the big news yesterday was the rights issue. The market expecting some kind of a rights issue. The company does have 19 odd billion rands worth of debt, which they need to refinance, or that has quite a big impact on the income statement, all those interest payments every year.
Craig, looking at the perceptions of rights issues for many investors, some say that is where you need to sell the stock once the company embarks on rights issues. But of course, during the financial crisis, it was about survival, and it seems investors kind of shrugged that notion off, that dump the stock if the company embarks on rights issues. What is your perspective now on Anglo Platinum? Would you be buying this company, given that headline earnings per share were down so much? But we know embarking on cost-cutting measures and also met production, despite the fact that they are on a rights issue right now.
I think one of the things as well over the last year, with a lot of the bad news, a lot of these companies have thrown in as much as they can. The kitchen sinking kind of term. Put in all the bad news, get it out the way, so that we've got a much lower base, we can move on from there, and things will look a lot better going forward. So I think companies have used that opportunity. Anglo Plat probably now streamline themselves, geared up for a much better future going forward, keeping that production at constant, and then keeping their costs down. They reckon they can manage their costs down and keep them level as well, probably for the next 2 years.
18,800 people down for that company, costs basically staying relatively flat, production targets met. Could you give us some insight into how that works? Because some would say, how do you keep production or meet production targets when you're 20,000 people down?
Yeah, I think a lot of those people were associated with unprofitable parts of the business. So this is really engineering, trying to create, get more efficiencies out of the business. And in that way, ultimately keep staff costs down. There must have been quite a high cost component in retrenching all of those employees to start with. But, fewer staff, yes, that will help going forward. But you also have those higher electricity prices coming in, and also the higher cost of the staff that you still have there, above inflation increases. So if they can keep it at an even keel, that will be quite a good result.
We had Xstrata out with results yesterday. Of course, we've also got Rio Tinto later on this week. Those two companies not listed also on the South African exchange, but clearly shows where we're headed in terms of the commodity space. BHP Billiton set to release results tomorrow. Your views on those companies?
Yes, again, also being in the commodity space, a lot of those commodities, and looking at the last year, lower average prices than the year before. Some of these companies, even Pellerman came out with numbers yesterday, also sharply lower. And that's probably going to be the outlook. We already had production numbers out of BHP Billiton for its first half. Some production records in petroleum and iron ore, so doing well in quite a few parts of the business. But you have to translate that production into sales, and of course if prices are lower, that impacts your bottom line as well. So I think we're going to see lower results across the board from these companies, but I think it's all about the prospects going forward, where they see their businesses going.